Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Extreme Radio, built by MDI Construction Inc. Go to MDIConst.com or search up MDI Construction Inc. on Facebook for all of your commercial property needs. Spencer Thompson, James Shannon, Trent Legate, Isaiah Austin, and a bunch of other guests here on today's show for a lot of really good things to go over with this past weekend. A lot in MTAC 8-man football going into the playoffs, but we'll go ahead and go first. Trent and I will give a little bit of discussion here on the non-playoffs game that we called yesterday. A very chilly night in Fayetteville, but the Warriors of Bowling Green managed to come out with a victory 26-8, and of course Trent's Bowling Green bias shown again on broadcast last night, but it was good to see at least they got that pickup game for their final game of the season to do that for the seniors and get them all one last game in there, Trent. But it's interesting to see how Riverside at home and with the fatigue of travel for Bowling Green all the way down to Fayetteville, how it didn't affect them at all. So good for the Warriors to get a victory down in Fayetteville.
Yeah, one thing I got to say is the love I have for both the coaches, Coach Brown and Coach Creasy. I think they're both great, respectful coaches, especially Creasy. We saw him, that was his last game with some of his guys, and he spent like a 30-minute extra huddle time just talking to him because that was the last time that he was going to be on the field with some of his guys. And I really appreciate the coaches that show that they love their guys and they truly mean it.
Well, and I think part of that, with that, I was like Trent said, I'm happy to see each of them pick up a game. They had a great ball game last year when they played each other, last game of the season, and a lot of respect for both the coaches, a lot of respect for a lot of the players on each side. Really not that many seniors between the two teams either. Riverside had some, but they've got a lot of younger guys coming up, so that's something they can look forward to. And it's always rough to go 1-9, or whenever you have a losing record. Bowling Green right there with them. Bowling Green didn't have a career as well. I mean, they won 3 or 4 games, but
5-4.
5-4, okay. But anyways, it was good to see the two teams match up. It was a great ball game, 26-8, cold night. Everything worked out. But congratulations to Bowling Green on a great year and picking up an extra win than they did last year. So third year already there up and running.
Yeah, and another thing we heard as well from both coaches that they were very complimentary of each other, both saying class act programs and such. So it'll be good to see how Riverside goes going forward, as well as Bowling Green. Both coaches really class acts.
They were both the head coaches last year at the Allstar game, and so they had a lot of time to interact with each other and talk and just kind of get to know each other, and as well as a lot of the players. But they have a lot of respect for each other. Two great coaches and great men, a lot of respect for them.
Just the one thing I want to say about the players is Spencer Baird had that pick 6 on the D line. That was a crazy play.
Yeah, I remember calling that. It was straight on the D-line. It was almost like what we saw with Xavier Vincent against Lighthouse in the Lighthouse Southaven game, where it was a punt play and Xavier Vincent just picked up the ball, ran it all the way back for a touchdown. It's amazing to see how defensive lines can do that sort of work just on the fly. So now going into the bowl game between St. Andrew Sewanee and Lighthouse Christian School, and a very early game at 3 in the afternoon because of Sewanee not having lights, and the Mountain Lions managed to come out with a victory, that 53-36. Now, we wanted to broadcast that game, and unfortunately we could not, James, but we were getting a lot of scoring updates, specifically from some Lighthouse fans messaging us and giving us all the updates on that game. But from what I heard, it was a back-and-forth game, very intense, and came down to the wire. But it was good for the Mountain Lions to get their last victory, even though the only reason they were in the bowl game at least was because of the coin toss. So good for them to at least treat it as if it were a semi, or treat it as if it were the championship or consolation, for them to put their full effort in there down in Sewanee, and good on the Mountain Lions to get that victory.
Yeah, it's always tough when you've got guys that, guys like their quarterback, Dustin Stinsby, been there for 4 years. Blaze Zeitler, been there for a while. They've got a lot of seniors that, with that being their last game for Sewanee, it's kind of a disappointment to end up in the bowl game at 7-1, and that was their argument. 7-1 versus 4-3 or so. But then again, it comes down to your conference record, and for me, yeah, you don't like to see the tiebreaker be a coin toss. But if that's the case, then don't leave it up to a coin toss. Win out, win your games, and there you go. That's all you got to do. You saw CCS do that against Lighthouse. If they would have dropped the ball, it would have gone to a coin toss, And honestly, CCS couldn't have been upset about it. I mean, because they didn't do what they needed to do, but they took care of business and did what they needed to do. For Lighthouse, I mean, it's tough. They've been rolling with 12, 13 guys all year, and that's hard to do. It's kind of what Hendersonville's been doing. But they've got playmakers. Ricky McDowell's only a junior. They're going to lose Parker Dillon, Malik McMurray, 2 senior receivers. But I have a feeling they're going to be back. Coach Sharp is going to do a great job with them. They're going to have more time during the offseason, not as much coaching turnover. But a great ball game back and forth. Big shout out to a lot of the parents that sent updates from that game. Thank y'all for that. That really helps us be able to do what we do.
I'm just going to say one thing. You said they're going to come back great next year. Lighthouse, they didn't start till week 6. They had all the practice, but, they had to cancel the games. And because of the storms from one of the hurricanes, they weren't able to play their Hendersonville game. So they didn't start till week 6. So that plays a big part in your season when you don't really get done with your first game jitters till week 6.
Well, the problem is, they were going through their first game issues that, a lot of teams like CCS got to do it against Sacred Heart. South Haven got to do it against Madisonville. They kind of got to ease into their season. Lighthouse comes in, and their first game of the year is halfway through FCA schedule, and they're already running full speed. So, that was already rough for them. And their second game, they're playing Riverside, who's rolling. And they barely beat Riverside. But then they played Bowling Green, Bowling Green, and then South Haven, and then Christian Community. So as they were getting their season ramped up, they couldn't get it too ramped up because they were only having essentially half a season. Whereas Swanee has been going since the end of August, and they've just been steamrolling. Obviously other than FCA, but great ball game. MTAC Bowl, for those people that say the MTAC Bowl is just a nothing game, you still get great ball games. I mean, 53-36 is a great ball game. That's a good ball game. It's a 17-point win, 2-score win maybe. You had the game last year, Christian Community and Riverside in the bowl game. I mean, the bowl game gives you good games consistently because I think it's a little more even matching up the 3 seeds as opposed to maybe a 2 seed and a 1 seed. And especially when it's a coin toss scenario. I would have been interested to see Webb and Lighthouse go head-to-head and to see Swanee and South Haven go head-to-head because I think that would have been a little bit closer on both sides. But it is what it is, and congratulations to the Mountain Lions picking up the win and closing out their season like that.
Yeah, and of course you talk about how the coin toss scenario of that, don't put yourself in that situation going forward to where it comes down to a coin toss, but there has been a lot more talk than in the previous years of reformatting that coin toss to where it's lower down the tier of the tie-breaking scenarios, so that'll hopefully be for the better as we go forward in MTAC 8-man football. So now getting into the semis, we'll start with the South Haven and Webb game that was down in Bell Buckle, the site of the championship here. Just a really good game that ended up, and started out, it was a 48-27 victory for the Patriots over the Feet, and 49-27, that's right. So it's close. One of the interesting things we saw, and we have Isaiah Austin on here. Now, Isaiah, one of the really interesting things we saw with this game was that the offensive coordinator for South Haven, Michael Crawley, we asked him before the game, what's your prediction? And he said 52-28. So only 3 points off on the victory in that game. So very close. But regardless, with South Haven and Webb, it was just sad to see how Webb kind of dropped the ball in the semi, Isaiah, because it looked as if South Haven was just a more dominant team and ready to play, traveling all the way down from Springfield.
Yeah, I feel like Webb came out a little bit flat-footed. Their passing game is what they really rely on a lot throughout the season, and they really came out and weren't able to pass the ball and get drives going down the field. And I felt like South Haven came out with that energy. I haven't seen Xavier Vincent play live yet. We didn't get a chance to play him this year. So I was really surprised on the ability that South Haven had to move the ball. I was not expecting that kind of dominant performance by South Haven in that one.
Yeah, and with that one, I think it's interesting to bring up that, and we talked about this pre-show. A lot of people said that South Haven had just played nobody. They played a lot of winless teams. They played Madisonville twice. They played Bowling Green. They played Riverside. They played now I'm blanking. anyways, they said that they didn't play anybody. They played Lighthouse. They said they didn't play anybody, and then when they played somebody, CCS, they lost. So a lot of people said that South Haven almost didn't deserve to be in there. Pretty much disrespecting a 7-1 record, because 7-1 is 7-1. I mean, obviously, yeah, you could say, well, you didn't play anybody and you beat them. Well, okay, that's fine, but that still means you're a good ball team. If you're struggling to beat a 2-3 or a 0-5 team, doesn't look very well. But if you're rolling over teams like you should be, I don't think there should be any disrespect in that. But then on the other side of the ball, Webb, just 2 weeks in a row, you dropped the game to Swanee, which they beat FCA, but they dropped the game to Swanee and just did not look like the same ball team in that game. And then coming up last night or Friday night, and just they couldn't hold on to the ball. Greg Kilpatrick did not have a great night. You were hoping some of those seniors would step up and do a little bit more, but we didn't see that happen. And so South Haven, second year in MTAC, and they have the chance to make history and be only the second team to win a championship in 2 different conferences. They won a TACS championship, so then they can follow Lighthouse's in their footsteps and win a MTAC championship.
Yeah, and of course, it's the first time in franchise history that the Patriots are in the MTAC championship, only their second year, and for them to come out and beat the team who's hosting the championship of their school is very significant for them going forward. But of course, as you told me right after you were done calling the game in White House, you told me you basically called the championship, and you may very be well right on that, because this score, those of you who are listening don't already know it or haven't seen it, Christian Community barely escaped a win over Franklin Christian, 36-34. And Trent, I'll get your word on this first, that you even posted to social media. You said you called one of the best games that we've seen this year, arguably the best game of the postseason, pending what we see in the Consolation and the Championship. But it was amazing to see. FCA knew exactly what was coming in. They knew by the flip of the coin, and that's what it came down to for where they would be going, either up to Christian Community or hosting South Haven. So FCA, at least, they gave it their all in that game. They did everything that they could, and unfortunately it came down to a attempted field goal, and with the rain and the muddy conditions, the kick holder Schindel unfortunately slipped with the ball and could not give Duncan the chance to hit it through the uprights there, of course.
He Romo.
In the words of James on broadcast, he did Tony Romo it, of course. But Trent, I mean, regardless of it coming down to a field goal and such, that was arguably one of the best games we've seen in this postseason thus far.
It is by far the best 8-man game I've ever seen. And one thing I want to say is FCA, they could have, they see that they're going up to play an undefeated team, and they could look back at the score at the start of the year. They could have looked at that and been like, we have no chance here, but they're champions, and so they have a champion mentality. So they weren't going to come in just laying down for CCS just to walk over them, and they gave them a big fight. It was more they gave them a bigger fight than I gave them credit for, and I picked them to win. Oh, and I need to mention this. I'm 3-1 on predictions this week. James is 1-3. But it was an amazing game. The rain really probably messed with CCS, and because I know FCA likes to run the ball, and with Buchanan they like to pound the ball down the middle. But CCS really started to make a big defensive stand. I noticed in more the second half. But it looked like the momentum kind of shifted between the halves when CCS had a high momentum in the first half, and then FCA kind of started taking it over. And like I heard some people say, if there was about a minute or two plays left to go, FCA might have won it. So all I gotta say is that was a great game, and I don't think I'm going to see a game like that happen in a while.
Well, FCA could have potentially gotten 2 more plays in. 10 seconds left. The ball was at the 10, or it might have been 7 or 8 seconds. But, if you could do something really quick to get to the outside, they were at the 10. And the way they've been running the ball all night, they could have done it. Now, FCA struggled just as much. I mean, there were probably, I said it earlier, there were about 6 or 7 home run plays for each team combined, where they were just, long runs for touchdowns. But at the same time, there were probably 25 to 30 plays where there was a fumble snap or a bad pitch or a bad lateral, and so the play just had to end right there, and you just had to fall on the ball. So there was a mixture of both. There were 2 extremes. But, both teams able to run the ball effectively. Isaiah Webb had a great night. DJ Jefferson, Nathaniel Rowley looked solid. Not a lot of passing, though. I mean, between both teams, I think there were maybe 6 or 7 passes thrown, and that's just, that's because of the conditions. But if then for FCA, you mentioned Buchanan, you got Weeks, Schindel, who's a natural running back, whose position is natural as running back. So, he ran the ball some, and they were able to run out of that, like a wildcat formation. But a lot of respect to both teams. Just a hard-fought game, a tight game. There were times CCS went up by 10 with, I think there was a little over a minute left, like a minute 40, and I think I said that the ball game was over. And FCA proved me wrong. They scored and they made the stop that they needed to and started marching down the field. So it was a great ball game, great semifinal game. And, no disrespect to South Haven, but I think that, that could potentially be – I said that it could have been at the championship game. I think we called pretty close to the championship game. But I think that proved that the North is even stronger, and that's evident, obviously, by who's playing in the championship.
Yeah, and but we saw a lot of things in that semi between FCA and CCS as well. A little bit of bit conflict with the referees having to sort out for 10 minutes with the chain gangs and some of the things that were happening there. So really a highly emotional game, not just on the team side, but also on the chain side and throughout the rest of the fans as well.
Well, there were bad emotions, but then there were good emotions. I mean, you look at post game, and I saw
even a bunch of emotions from you too.
Yeah, I couldn't talk the next morning, and then I woke up this morning and my throat hurt. But I saw Dan Adams, the CCS kicker, catch up with Ben Duncan, the FCA kicker, and just kind of console him a little bit, tell him, hey man, I know you would have hit that. Just a lot of sportsmanship. I know Brandon Miner and Colt Rollins shared a moment together for quite a while. They talk a lot. A lot of those CCS guys had been at the All-Star game last year with FCA, and that's what's cool about it is, we posted a picture on our story of Jalen Tillman, Riley Hall, and Luke Stapleton all interacting and wishing good luck to each other. There's a lot of respect and sportsmanship, and it's really great to see that. It's great to see kids from completely different teams interacting with each other and talking to each other, and not in the way that we saw after last Friday night with the coin toss and everything, where there was a lot of trash talking. That's going to happen, but then when you have a lot of respect between guys and in their interaction, whether it be on the field or social media or whatever, that's always great to see, and that's what's ideal. So a lot of emotions, but it leads to this Saturday.
And this Saturday, we'll get into our predictions for the games later. But speaking of the All-Star game, we do have an update on that for everybody. Next Sunday, we are going to be doing a lot more talking about All-Star. We just got a brief mention on here for the coaching situation with it. We did announce last week that the honorary alumni captains are Trent Legate and Elijah Jones, and their coaches from the North, Daniel Meek will be with Trent Legate, and from the Tennessee Heat, Ryan Scott from the South will be with Elijah Jones for the coaching situations on that. So the coin toss, of course, Elijah Jones getting the first pick in the draft and Trent Legate having the home team as he chose for the All-Star game. So we are ready. We are ready for the All-Star game going into next week. And, of course, I believe Sunday night we will also be doing the mock draft between the two players pending the actual draft, which is next Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of 2017 Extreme All-Star Game coverage for you guys starting next Sunday, and then all throughout the week we'll have stuff for you guys. Of course, the guys will show up Thursday at noon, and the game is next Saturday, 2 p.m. at Fort Bluff Camp, Dayton, Tennessee, and we're going to have a great time. We got 34 of the best 8-man players from across the state, and we're excited. We're excited about the ball game. We're getting everything set up, and we're on our way. Thank y'all, by the way, for everybody that bought shirts and gear from last year's All-Star game. We're gonna have the ability for pre-orders. It is okay. So if you order stuff, it is ordered. It has to be. I believe the printer is gonna start tomorrow. So as soon as it's printed, it'll get shipped to y'all. But sorry about the delay. Just had to get all the kinks worked out. But thank y'all for buying stuff and buying stuff with our logo and representing us out in the community.
Yep, and so the good thing is with that, even though it's a little bit delayed with getting the All-Star stuff out, it'll be shipped to you in time for going to the All-Star game, so you'll be able to wear your gear as you go up there to Dayton. Now for our Kentucky RV Sales interview, go to kyrvsales.com or search up Kentucky RV Sales on Facebook to see all the things they have for sale, as well as their service center and all their promotions. So our Kentucky RV Sales interview has a lot of several people in studio, the most we've had interviewed on the show ever. We have fully crowded, yes. We have both coaches who are going to be present in the championship, Jordan Flanders from Christian Community, Jason Zimmerman from South Haven. And we have players from both teams, Nate Green from South Haven and Isaiah Webb from Christian Community. We'll start with you, Coach Flanders. We had you back on the show several months ago. If we had gone back and told you that Christian Community would be in the championship today, would you have believed us?
Well, that was the original plan.
I probably would say yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was the ultimate goal. I thought if we continued to play like we had played and execute like we were executing, we had a pretty good shot at making it. And we make it by 2 points, but we made it. So. Yeah,
and speaking of that 2-point issue, I know that after the coin toss occurred, you had a little bit of I wouldn't say fear, but more of just surprise that you would be facing FCA in the semis, hoping it would possibly go one way or the other. But in terms of the game last night, I did catch your post game huddle with them, with the players saying, "There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to cheer you up," and especially your post game interview saying, sportsmanship is on our side, that we'll have to improve on that. Just talk about kind of the post game, what you told your guys going forward, as well as some of the things that happened last night and how you're going forward as a program to handle that.
Well, yeah, as far as the coin toss goes, we don't have a whole lot of history with Webb and Swanee. We played Webb a couple of times. I think we may have played Swanee one time. We have a lot of history with FCA. And so I told my guys back after we beat FCA, I said, we got a lot of bounces this game, and it's going to be a much tougher ball game, especially with some of the new additions that they had. That running back they've got he's like a bowling ball with legs. I mean, he's just it was cold, it was rainy. I'm telling guys to wrap up. They're saying they're trying. They can't feel their hands when they're trying to wrap up around the guy. And so it was a challenge Friday night. As far as the huddle goes, I did tell them, I said, there's not a whole lot I can make you I can say to make you feel better. I would definitely say it had a championship feel to it just by going back and forth. I say that because we played them in the championship 2 years ago, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth till the end. And I think they beat us by a score or 10 points. I'm not 100% sure, but it went back and forth the whole game. And so got a chance to know some of the guys on the other side of that ball just a little bit. And so it was a team had to win. I'm glad it was us. I'm glad we hopefully don't have to play. And I saw that we may have rain Saturday, but it's going to be about 20 degrees warmer, I think. So that'll be a blessing. But
so Isaiah, you've been at CCS since your freshman year, and you've been with a bunch of guys. I think I saw a picture the other day. It was like 6 or 7 of y'all that have been together since freshman year. You got Colton Rollins and DJ Jefferson, a bunch of guys. So your freshman year, you guys, you got knocked out by FCA in the playoffs. That really tight playoff game. You guys have history. So then to get to and then your sophomore year, you guys lost the title to them. So to pick up this win and head to a championship, talk about how it feels not only to pick up the win over them in the playoffs and just a tight ball game, but at the other hand, how it feels to close out your high school time with a chance to play for a championship.
Well, it means everything to me, be able to finish those guys, got a lot of history of them, like you said, and to be able to win against FCA, it's a blessing to win against them. They're a really good ball team. They're really fundamentally sound on every side of football. And I think that means everything to our guys that we were able to pull that win out and be able to finish the season the right way because we had a vision at the very beginning of the season. And I was glad we were able to execute that.
How tough was it? Because obviously they got some big linemen, they got some big boys, and they got guys that can lay licks. Who gave you the hardest hit Friday?
Probably Hayden Weeks.
He's a grown man.
He's a big guy.
He's a grown man for sure. So, Nate, you're the same way. You've been at South Haven since your 8th grade year. You were on the South Haven teams that played Macon Road for the title. You were on the team last year that went winless. how was it frustrating? Did you think about giving up after last year? And then talk about going from that to where you guys are now 8-1, going for a chance to play for a championship again. And then talk about how much tougher has the competition been tougher since you guys have gone from maybe TACS to MTech?
Changing divisions was definitely rough. More people, more competition for sure. After coming from last year, it was hard coming into this year. Getting a new coach, new players coming in. I know we got Isaac Wellis was a great addition to the team this year, and we had guys working out all year. We had Aaron Reff working out at DN. He's doing great this year. We had Xavier Vincent, and he's done work all summer. And we've had guys step up each this year. And not only the guys, but having Coach Zimmerman come in and change the mentality of this team and to more of a aggressive and rough and tough team has really helped us this year and push through and prepare us for playing MTAC football. It's really helped us.
So, obviously you've had to play a couple different positions. They've moved you around a little bit on offense and defense. When you got a chance to be a receiver this year where you guys had some solid linemen that were going to be in place and you were going to be able to move outside and you were good to play DN, something maybe you're a little more comfortable with, how excited were you to get a chance to get to catch a few more balls and get to play a few more different positions? Because obviously, you can't pick one favorite position, but if you get to play a couple different ones, it always makes it a little more interesting.
Yeah, it was great to be able to touch the ball a little bit, especially coming from young years being a lineman. Never thought I'd be able to touch the ball, but eventually being able to carry the ball, getting some yards this year, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
So, Coach, obviously everyone says that, you mentioned it, that there were people that said you guys shouldn't have been in the playoffs. It should have been CCS and the 3 teams from the South because you guys didn't play anybody. And I think obviously looking at the results, the way that you guys handled Webb and the way that they played, I think that, trying to think how to put this. What was your reaction when you heard that? Because obviously, you had to feel somewhat disrespected when people say, well, they haven't played anybody, and that when they played somebody, they lost to them. But talk about that, and then talk about getting a big win there in the playoffs against a team like Webb, who had a good year so far and had beat some good teams. But you knew that there were problems a little bit.
Well, we knew we had a little bit of a weaker schedule. We didn't know before the season, but it panned out that way. After we played Lighthouse, though, they were a real opponent. I mean, they had some of the fastest athletes, that we faced. And so after that win, you really don't know as a coach how good your team is until you start playing the better teams. It was really there we saw that the things we've been working on, the things we've been trying to fix, and that really panned out against Lighthouse. So we really felt we knew then that we were a good team. We made some adjustments in that Lighthouse game that made us better, and we felt like, we could compete against anybody, and we proved that when we faced Webb.
So you guys, you said Lighthouse was pretty good. Another team that you two both played, Riverside, had a tough season, 1-9, and Coach Creasy, doing the best he can. How deceiving is that 1-9 record for that Riverside team?
Well, that's deceiving. When we played them back when we did, it was early in the season. I think their quarterback may have got hurt that game. But that's one of the toughest teams I've seen. And then I watched them a few weeks later play Lighthouse and just fight all the way to the bitter end. Really thought they deserved to win that game. But, it's just like last season. We had a bunch of injuries. I wasn't here, but I heard of it. And a season can be changed. 1 or 2 guys go down, one of your main guys go down, and you're a complete different team struggling to win every week.
Just how deceiving is that 1-9 record for Riverside?
Well, I know Coach Creasy, they had an excellent year last year. I think they finished 8-3 or 8-2. And 4 important guys that were supposed to come back, I know ended up either transferring or not end up playing. And so that always makes it tough if you're playing on one thing and not having another. I think when South Haven played them, they had the quarterback for part of the game. And then when they played us, they didn't have it for any of the game. And so it really kind of made them one-dimensional when we got there. And so it made it easier defensively. They're definitely I know the score was wide when we played them as far as margin of victory, but definitely one of the most physical teams we played throughout the year here.
Now, both of you guys, I'm sure at some point you've had to deal with the numbers issue. And a team like Hendersonville, who had one of the year with 13, 14 guys, ended up going down to 11 or 12. How tough is that to try to play with 3 or 4 reserves on your bench, where as opposed to, you've got 10 guys that you can send into the game at any time?
Well, I know for us, Friday night we had to start reeling some people in. We had 2 players that didn't end up getting to finish the game after the third quarter or beginning of the third quarter. I know by the final drive, we had our starting center played cornerback on the final drive. So if that tells you anything about having to shift some bodies around, right? And he's athletic enough to do it. David West, I think, I know a lot of good people are in this league. I think he's the best center in the league with just the way he fights and his communication. But again, we had a center playing cornerback on the final drive. It should tell you a little bit about, just because you have a lot of guys doesn't mean you have guys that fit in spots. And so thank God we were able to get him in there and help us finish that drive off.
Same thing. Well, being with 11-man football, we averaged about 20 men a roster, so we were always down. My very first year, we had 14 guys playing through it. So I know one game played with 11 players, and it's just a fight. I give credit to those types of teams, but we had a little bit of adversity in the middle of the season when Kobe went down, and we suffered from it because everybody else is playing a different position, a position that they're not strongest to. So hats off for RCA. They moved some guys around, figured out some things in spite of it. And what I've learned is that the guys, if they'll stick with it, that fought hard, that they'll see the benefits a couple year or two down the road from now.
About halfway through the season, Kobe went down with an injury. Of course, you lost Andrew Crawley to an injury. So you guys are trying to sort out the quarterback situation. And everyone kind of wrote you guys off. Okay, you lost 2 quarterbacks. You're going to have to move a skilled player in there. Who were some guys that really stepped up in that time? Obviously, we know Nate, we know Xavier, we know Aaron Reff had a great year. But who's somebody that people don't really know about that even that they can keep an eye out for on Saturday to really do some great things and maybe make a play out of nowhere?
Well, we had some freshmen step up. Cole Laird, he's a freshman. He's been mostly playing JV, but he stepped up a lot. He's been playing cornerback for us and just learning the game. It's a great thing. Some of those things are a blessing in that some of the younger ones get in before they really should and grow up. So he really feels playing like a sophomore right now. Some of the other ones, Josue Patino, he stepped in at defensive end. Ethan Barnhill stepped up at defensive end. Those are some of the guys that have just filled in some positions. You mentioned Aaron Reff. I don't know if people know this, but he actually played quarterback. He was our backup quarterback and played a few downs. Now he's nothing what you would expect of a quarterback, but just a player that listens to everything we said, and that's the kind of guy we knew could step up for us.
Speaking of quarterback, Coach, Nathaniel Rowley been playing quarterback for a couple of years now, and maybe somebody that people overlooked and didn't pay a lot of attention to. Talk about his play this year and getting him to the point where I know the last couple of years he's had to split reps between him and Nathan Elmer. So him kind of getting the keys to the car this year and how he's handled that.
Well, he's been, I guess you want to call, groomed over that time. He's been with me since he was an 8th grader. And so his freshman year, he had to step up and start the season off against eventual champion FCA that year. Played well in that game because Nathan Elmer got hurt leading into that. So he played a couple games there and then was of course, Elmer got healthy and took the spot back. And then, of course, again last year, our starting quarterback went down early, and so he had to play the majority of the season again. And so just knowing that he has a full season to come in, he knows the offensive playbook. He's starting to think like I think, which could be good and bad, But his maturity and calmness and just he knows where everybody's supposed to be at. He knows what they're supposed to do, and he knows the protections and maybe even some reads to call. And so he's being mature this year has helped everyone else excel their game. And so.
Kind of the same question for that we asked Coach. Give us somebody that throughout the year has stepped up at a certain position. And obviously Colton Rollins has had a great year and had a great night last night, but somebody that stepped up out of nowhere and somebody to kind of keep an eye on for Saturday.
Well, Colton and Jacob Ross started the year out at defensive end and played it all the way up to the South Haven game, and both were hurt early in that game. And so Avery Harper, who's a sophomore, what Coach talked about, kind of guys that had to play really maybe before they were ready. And now he's at the very least going to be a part of the rotation. He's still starting for us. Kyle Madden's another guy who he's been with us for 4 years. He hasn't gotten a whole lot of playing time. He got a little bit last year. Then he got injured and was out most of the year. And then this year he didn't start out with a whole lot of playing time, but the last couple of games we really needed him, and he's helped us get to where we're at. Probably had the best game of his career Friday night. So those two guys, names no one's probably heard of, contributed mightily to the win we had Friday night.
Oh, I gotta get it. So Isaiah, brutally honest moment. It was throughout the whole year. Of course, you guys have played 11 games, played a lot of different teams. Was there ever a point that you saw that you were going to play somebody, and you saw a player on that team? You said, "Wow, I can't wait to play that guy," or "Man, that guy's going to be good. He's going to hurt," or "Man, that guy's fast. I got to try to beat him out."
Absolutely, Xavier Vincent. It was just like right off the bat. You already knew that.
Is that somebody you're looking for?
Absolutely, that guy's huge, and he's a really good football player. I can't wait to play him again. He's really difficult first time, but I can't wait to play him again. He's a good athlete.
Same thing for you, Nate. Anybody that you've seen there or that you kind of knew of that you said, "Man, that guy's going to be tough," or "Man, I can't wait to play that guy and get a chance to talk to him"?
I know for sure going into the CCS game, I was looking forward to that game all year, especially coming out of last year with a winless season. That was the game I've been focusing on all season, and that's the team that I was focusing that I wanted to beat the most this year, and I wanted to play all them players. I didn't care who.
Who is, and I'll ask both of you players this question. So who is somebody that you guys kind of look to as a mentor in the game, or a guy that was maybe either a senior last year or the year before, somebody you looked up to and you kind of patterned your game after, that it was either on your team or somebody that you knew?
Starting off in 8th grade, going through my high school career, I've had many different coaches. But through my 10th grade year, I had Coach Gonzalez, who later left, and followed up by Coach Crawley. And then, but Coach Gonzalez really taught me how to play the game of football. That's when I started to become a starter. That's when I learned to step up my game and how to be a leader on the football field. Not only in the football field, but in the classroom. But he really helped me get physical in my game and help me learn and create more passion for me inside the game of football.
Well, for me, obviously, I learned a lot from Coach Flanders, but playing alongside Colton Rollins really helped out a lot because, he knows a lot about football. He's been playing a long time, and he's pretty good at football. So playing alongside him made a little bit of a difference for me growing up. So, yeah.
Well, guys, we got any other questions?
I think that'll essentially wrap it up for our Kentucky RV sales interview. So best of luck to both of you coaches, both of you players, and the rest of your franchise in the championship. We're really looking forward to calling you guys on Friday night.
We're looking forward to seeing people drive all the way from up here in Robertson County, where y'all are 20 minutes apart, going an hour and a half away. We're looking forward to seeing how many people make the trip. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. But if you guys cannot make the trip, make sure that y'all tune into our broadcast. We'll be live. We'll go live probably about 5:45. And, of course, you and Isaiah Austin, Trent Legate, you guys all have the call. So we're looking forward.
Yeah, and we'll be broadcasting the consolation game as well on Friday. That'll be Isaiah Austin and Hunter Thompson, my older brother, will have the call in that game at 2 o'clock of Webb and FCA playing for 3rd place in Bell Buckle. So we'll have the call on both of those games Saturday night. But it's time for us to get into our predictions here, James and Trent. I think we'll get Isaiah in here on these predictions as well in just a moment.
I'm going to let I'm going to let Trent and Isaiah make these picks because they'll actually be calling the game.
I see.
I am going to make an executive decision. I'm going to back out of the
So let me just clarify. Because the coaches are in here right now, you're refusing to make predictions here. Is that what's going on?
I'm going to make predictions on this one anyway. Yo,
check this out. I graduated from one of the schools, and I go to church at the other school. How am I going to pick? Are you really going to make me pick? Come on.
Of course.
For me, one school is like an all-time rival, and then CCS.
Okay.
I know Isaiah probably doesn't have any bones making a pick because all the way down there in Franklin, he's good, but he can take my pick.
Safe up here. I'm totally safe.
All right, so let's go first with the consolation game. I'll start with you, Isaiah, on that. So we've seen how Webb has played, and you've especially seen how both of these teams have played on the field. Based on the way that Webb kind of played Saturday night, it's kind of hard to see. Maybe they'll have a rebound just so they can get third place and get a win on their turf in the consolation game. But I think FCA might be more hungry to at least get a higher position than any other team, especially after that loss to CCS.
Yeah, well, it would be pretty easy to pick Webb over FCA just because they played 3 weeks ago, and Webb was able to take care of FCA on FCA's field. But I feel like Webb has been on the decline recently, and Webb has been rising FCA has been rising like crazy. So I think if we could really see a good game here, but I have FCA pulling this one out.
All right, so you got FCA with that one. All right, Trent, so FCA Webb, from what you've seen from both of these teams, man.
Oh, just look how well FCA did against CCS. You know, they got it in them, so I want to take FCA.
All right, so you've got.
You're welcome, Scott.
All right, so you got FCA on that one. So now for the ultimate prediction, the championship. Isaiah, so we saw how South Haven dominated against Webb, and we have seen how CCS had their first undefeated season in franchise history with both of these teams from the north. They had a huge battle between the two to essentially kind of take first place in the north, depending on how the Lighthouse game would have gone. That was back towards the end of the regular season. But with both of these teams, they both know what's at stake. One franchise wants to get to their third MTAC title. One franchise wants to become only the second of any school to get a championship in two conferences in football. So it's going to be good to see both of these teams battle it out on Saturday night. But who have you got for this one?
I got CCS pulling this one out, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. Look, I think Isaiah Webb is the best running back in the league, and Xavier Vincent is second. So both of those guys are going to be going at each other all night. That's just my opinion, but I think it's going to be heavy run game, heavy offense, and it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. But I have CCS pulling this one out.
Yeah, I think it is going to be closer than people may assume there. Now, Trent, we have seen everything that's gone into the season. Unfortunately, we were only able to call one regular season game for CCS, but we were able to call about two or three of them for South Haven. So with looking at both of the teams and everything that's going in, what do you got for this one, Trent?
Do I have to pick? They're both right here.
Yes, you have to. James is out because he's scared of it, so you have to pick.
Can y'all cover y'all's ears? I'm going to take CCS on this, but in all sports, I believe it's whatever players or team or coaches, whoever has their heart in it the most is who's going to come out on top. And I honestly believe that. I believe if Massillville had their heart in it enough, they could beat South Haven or CCS. But,
let me mention something.
Oh, no, I was done, I guess. No, but I think it's going to be I just can't wait to see Xavier like in that heated moment because I know Xavier and South Haven, they've been in them high circumstance championship games. Shut up, James. But I just can't wait to see the game. I think it's like Isaiah said, I think it's going to be a lot closer than what a lot of other people think, and it's kind of showing how dominant y'all's division is.
So I think the other thing that I want to keep an eye on for Saturday is I think for CCS, it's going to be important for them because obviously we know there's a chance of them going to play at the NHSA tournament down in Panama City, Florida, the National 8-Man tournament. There's a chance. There's a possibility. It's an invitational tournament. There's always that opportunity, that possibility. And so I think for those guys to focus on, they've done a great job this year, one game at a time. Don't focus on going 10-0. Just focus on going 1-0. But I think for those guys, it's going to be interesting for me to see, you mentioned Trent, where their head is, and just see if you're going to be able to be more focused. And I think that's going to be the key, is who's going to be more focused. It's going to be cold. There could be rain, there could be wind. So who's going, and then that's how it was Friday. It was who's going to be more focused, who's going to, who's going to lay it all out there. And I think whoever does that is going to walk away with the title. And there will not be any title controversy this year. So that's
a very good thing to see about it. I'm sure that Webb and FCA going into the consolation game, they'll both say to each other, we didn't expect to face each other in this game, of course. That was the same that Lighthouse and FCA did in the Consolation. One of the Lighthouse coaches walked up to FCA and said, you guys want to go bowling? You guys want to go bowling? We don't want to be here. Yeah.
Hey, how about a charity softball tournament? There you go. Charity softball.
Charity softball instead of a third place game for football. That's something to look forward to. So how about that instead of the bowl game, maybe?
No. But anyways, a huge thank you to Coach Flanders, Coach Zimmerman, Nate, Isaiah. Awesome to have y'all here, and we're looking forward. We're looking forward to Saturday. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great set of games that we're gonna see Saturday night, but with all four teams traveling down to Belleville. Of course, again, the North teams wondering why are they traveling an hour and a half down, but it's going to be great to see all those games. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you did not hear it already from us, 2 p.m., Isaiah Austin and Hunter Thompson will have the call for the consolation game between Franklin Christian Academy, the Falcons, and the Webb School Feet. That starts at 2 o'clock. Their coverage will begin live about 1:45 Central Time. And the championship game, myself and Trent Legate will have the call. We'll have Isaiah Austin and possibly James Shannon on sideline. So that will be coverage for that will start about probably 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I think we'll do a lot more in-depth analysis before the game, of course, and go through the championship ceremonies and such. So that game will be called both games here on our YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe, click the bell icon so you can know exactly when we go live and not miss a single moment.
How about a shout out for our boy Spencer on Tennessee 8-Man Weekly Tuesday night, killing it with the show. Great job.
Oh, yeah, that was last week.
So back-to-back weeks. Good job, guys.
Yeah, that was last week. I forgot about that. Yeah, it was this past Tuesday for Tennessee 8-Man Weekly. So they have Jonathan Thompson, I'm sure, will have a lot to talk about on Tuesday.
I'm really surprised you haven't made the dad joke about who's going to get the trick and who's going to get the treat Saturday. Really surprised you have not made that joke.
It'll be past Halloween. It was a matter of who got the trick and treat this past weekend for pre-Halloween. You should have made that joke already or something like that. But if anything, out of the three guys who do 8-Man Extreme here, you're the father because you have kids. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that'll wrap it up for Extreme Radio this week. Be sure to tune in for the Consolation and Championship game on Saturday. We're ready to see the Falcons in the feet battle for third and the Colts and the Patriots battling for first place. For James Shannon and Trent Legate, I'm Spencer Thompson. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you this Saturday, and as well as for Isaiah Austin. This is right, guest starring here. For everybody in studio, of course. Now, I'm Spencer Thompson. We will see you this Saturday and next week.